And we are live, good people.
Are we? I can't get it to come
We
up.
are.
Let me
And I'm going to tag everyone. Let me come out of this and go back in. All right, there we go. I'm going to share it with
There you go.
everyone. Oh yeah, don't forget to turn your phones down. Let me see.
Now we're live. I got it.
Oh yeah, don't forget to turn your phones down.
Who was that? You?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your phone. Your phone. Easy, turn it down.
Oh.
That's why you say who is that? All right. So normally Victor is handling this part, but I got this tonight. Here we go. Yeah.
Nature right there.
That's just
Yeah, because he may have to come back in.
Nah, I ain't like it.
E.G. Yeah.
All right, guys, we are definitely live on this Tuesday. I'm tagging all of you good folks.
Hey.
Yes, it is. Let me see. Tyrone, there you go. All right, let me save this. All right, good people. We are live on this Tuesday, and we have, yes, special guest in here with me tonight. Let me get this. Come on, let me get this together. All right, so tonight I am here. Well, I don't want to say by myself because I do have guests, but Victor is not with us tonight. Fatine is all the way in New York, so he is doing his thing. So I had to bring some special people on with me tonight. I am your host, Veronica. Give myself a bell.
Oh, y'all got two bells now. Y'all done moved
Stepping
up
up.
since I've been here.
Yes, I'm Veronica,
Where's the
your
gavel?
host. I have it. I don't think we need it tonight.
Oh, okay.
There you
Okay.
go.
I think we're all going to be on our best behavior tonight.
Okay.
Right? So this is Tanky Tea of Life, guys, where we talk about any and every single thing. Over to my right, we do have Voodoo Chow, who is back with us tonight. What's going
What up?
on, Voodoo?
Hey, glad to be back. Glad to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And to my right, girl, EG is back with us. The coach is back with us tonight. And also making a first appearance on the T. He's always in the comments. Always in the comments. And he sat in here with us one time, but he just wasn't on camera. Welcome, Mr. Tyrone, to the panel.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
So glad to have you join us tonight, Tyrone. This is you're welcome. This is a privilege to have you sitting in with us because, like I said, you're always in the comments, but you finally made a choice to come hang out with us.
Finally.
Yes.
A bit debate, guys. A bit debate.
Good to have you. For those of you who are watching, please let us know if you guys can hear us or not. Make sure that our mics are like they're supposed to be. Hey, Michael. Both Michaels, Michael Keith and also Michael Mills. I see you, all of you out there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Doreen. Hey, Lisa, Stacy. Hey, Sly. Thank you so much for the stars. We appreciate you and all of you for watching tonight. This is a
Victor
special.
is starting
Yes,
already.
Victor's already
Come on, Vic.
Oh gosh. This is a special show tonight with some special folks with me on the panel. We are definitely glad that all of you are tuning in for this special show tonight. But before we get into it, I, want to ask you guys, how was your weekend? Voodoo, we start with you because we know you have big things going on. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. The week started off good. Like just busy. This is that time of the season where things really start getting more and more busy going into late September, October, into the holidays. So I am blessed, not complaining. I'm feeling my age a little bit. As you can see, I've been going to the gym.
Okay.
Word.
Now you can't see it yet, but you will by the spring.
Word.
Popped in on Veronica
Yes, you did.
in her class, and let me tell y'all, I was in there for 5 minutes, and Veronica does not play no games in that
Gotta get
class.
in.
They work it out for real, for real. I was in there literally 5 minutes, just came to show my face and say what's up, and did a little couple moves. And when I went upstairs to walk my mile, my side was cramped up for messing with Veronica. So I just want to say thank you. It's no joke. It's an excellent. That's an excellent workout. I can tell.
Thank you, Voodoo. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, we got to get out. You know, you don't go to the gym to play around. Got to get it
Ain't
in.
played.
Oh, and they not playing.
You know? Thank you, Voodoo. I was so happy to see you come through the door. I was like, Voodoo.
That's right. I saw it. I was
Just
like, let me-
like that. 'cause
Just
that
like
is
that.
So you. That is so you.
I had been meaning to pop up on you for a minute, and I said, and then my sister-in-law's in there, my niece is in there with you,
Okay.
so they work it out. Very good
Nice.
class.
Thank you so much. E.G., how was your weekend?
It was good. It was more decompressing. I don't do a lot on the weekends because I have really, really busy weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm becoming like the old lady
Yeah.
who just tries to chill out. In the last few weeks, I've been traveling a lot for business, and so this weekend was just about trying to unpack first of all because I'm a whole moving show. 4 suitcases.
Oh, girl, I can imagine. You be on the go.
Yeah, and I'm high maintenance for no reason. So
Yeah, that too.
shouts out to Southwest Airlines.
Okay.
Look here, 2 bags fly free, and you bring 2 more on. That's 4 bags, and I'm gonna take advantage of them all.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I didn't do anything this weekend, so it was good.
Well, you know, so a lot of times when we have those weekends where we don't do anything, it's like the best.
Yes.
So
Yes.
shout out for you for getting that in. All right, Mr. Tyrone, how was your weekend, sir?
My weekend was a weekend. I don't typically do too much on the weekends.
Yeah.
I try to do like what's it called? A personal day, every other week. So I
Yes.
did my little massage this weekend.
Okay.
They say 90-minute massage is like an 8-hour sleep. So
So
I
good.
had to get that in. I try to do that every couple weeks.
Nice. Self-care.
Self-care is the best care.
Listen, self-care is not only for women. Self-care is for you men as well.
Yes.
Never got them.
Listen, guys. Listen. I'm
Not
trying
a-
to tell you, the
not-
older we get,
Not the real one.
Okay.
Listen,
the
the older we get, the more important all that stuff is. I do chiropractic, I do massage, I do all of that because, especially if you're sitting at a desk all the time, the muscles start to
Yes.
set. Those bones get out of place and what have you. So it's good to take care of yourself. You got to do it.
Most definitely.
What about you, ma'am?
Oh, so my weekend, I had a great weekend. I did. Shouts out to Voodoo once again for coming to my class. I think that was that Sunday?
That was
Thursday.
That was probably was a Thursday.
Thursday. That was a Thursday. So shout out to Voodoo for that. My weekend, I actually went to the Catfish Festival in Society Hill. I had no idea that the Catfish Festival was going on that day. My best friend Michelle called me up and was like, "Hey, Pam and I, my sister, getting ready to go to the Catfish Festival. Do you want to ride?" So I went. It probably was like maybe 2:30, and I think they shut everything down around 4:00. But yeah, we went out there just for a few minutes, and Cashel had to get her red velvet cupcakes. But yeah, so we rode out there. The Catfish Festival is not the same. If you all know about the Catfish Festival, you know it's a big event in Society Hill, and they changed the date for whatever reason. They always try to not compete with the nut festival, the
Pecan
pecan
Festival.
festival.
Nut festival.
You are
The
now
Nut Festival.
officially barred
The
from
Nut
Florence.
Festival, and I'm on the committee.
Oh, you are officially barred,
I
barred.
knew
Pecan
you.
Festival Committee.
I knew you was on the committee. I'm
Nut
sorry. I
Festival.
couldn't think of
I
the
like
name.
that better.
Okay, the Night Festival. Don't that
Got
sound
so much
better?
more promise.
Hey,
The
well,
Pecan Festival. So they switched dates, I think, last year, but now it's going to be in September. So hey, shouts out to the Catfish Festival, good folks over there in Society Hill. Well, I did that, and then I went to an event at Jerusalem Baptist Church in Hartsville. They had the Taste of Jerusalem, and it was really good. Let me tell you, it was so many people out there, so many people, and the food was excellent. So shout out to Mrs. Tony, Miss Ellen Tony, for giving me tickets. And my girl Ann, I think she on here. Shout out to Ann. She went out there with me, and we had a great time.
so what kind of food did they have out there?
My gosh, everything from collard greens to Chinese rice to um,
It
devil
must have been good.
eggs.
You all in
I'm
it.
like,
I can
oh
feel.
my God,
I can feel
Just
the
name
energy.
three things that
Listen.
you don't have to go to a festival to get.
Right.
I'm just, it wasn't a fest.
It was
It
the
was a
taste.
Oh, it's the taste
The
of.
taste.
Okay, my
Taste
bad.
of.
I
Not
retract that.
after.
Say I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
I retract that last statement.
They really was cooking there. Like they had
Okay.
different restaurants there too, and like different organizations like Care South and things like that. People from the church was cooking. This lady made the bomb, some kind of carrot. It was like in little squares, like little cake squares, but it was carrot.
Carrot cake?
It wasn't
It
carrot
wasn't
cake.
carrot.
though?
It wasn't cake. I don't know how she made it, but it was the bomb. Like broccoli salad, but it was like it was so perfect, like in little squares. But it was
I think I know what you're
It
talking
was
about.
carrot.
Yeah, it's savory. It's not. It's not a cake. It's like a little mini salad. It's almost like a little. I'm gonna say quiche for lack of a better word, but I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, it was so good,
It is.
so
It's
good.
different. Yeah.
Mhm. So I mean, it was anything that you can think of. It was out there from chicken wings to whatever.
You know what? Hold on, hold on. What we ain't gonna do, y'all. Shout out to Jerusalem Baptist Church
You
of
know what?
Hartsville for this taste of. But what we ain't gonna do is follow Miss V up, cause while she in there dragging people across McLeod gym floor,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? The rest of us don't have that calorie ability. Okay, we don't. We don't. So don't follow her ass up talking about, oh my gosh, the food was great. I went to 3 festivals this weekend. And you just heard Voodoo say he did 5 minutes with her and was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this treadmill. I'm gonna take this treadmill.
Right. You're gonna see if your knees work.
Exactly.
In
Yeah.
that class.
No, we can't follow you up on your weekend escapade. So thank you for sharing, but no, thank you.
But it was a lot of food out there that was low carbs. That was
Listen, if anybody know Veronica, Veronica's gonna do one thing.
tell them
Veronica gonna eat.
She gonna eat. She gonna eat.
Hey, what I used to call you,
Mikey.
Mikey, because she likes it. Whatever,
Yes.
It don't matter what it is, she gonna eat it.
One thing my man is gonna know about me, wherever he's at, is that I love
I thought you was telling us something.
I'm about to say, what you doing?
I'm like, okay, this
Like,
is
you
topic
were-
we
is this-
doing
what
out
we
the
doing?
gate.
You about to let us give
You
us
just
some
stu-
tea for real.
Okay.
no, but in the future he's gonna know that I love to eat. Okay, I'm not a picky eater, but I love to eat.
Definitely love to eat.
So, yeah. All right. So once again, thank you all so much for joining Tangy Tea of Life tonight. I have a wonderful panel with me. Victor, he's in Virginia working. Fatine is
He ain't
in.
in no
Victor's
damn
in them
Virginia.
comments.
Victor is in the damn comments.
Right where he need to be.
harassing
That's what's up.
people.
Nah, that's what he. That's yeah.
Fatine is
He on
in
it.
New York, celebrating WBLS radio station 50th
Yeah.
anniversary. So shout out to him. But yeah. So guys, like there's so much going on in our communities. So much. So I definitely picked this topic tonight over the weekend. Actually, was it over the weekend? Sunday, Monday, I think. Talking about all the violence that are going on in our communities, the school shootings and all of that. And it's funny because my homeboy who lives at the beach, he actually sent in a topic suggestion, and I was like, dude, this go along right with what I wanted to talk about Tuesday. So his question was, when is it acceptable to start holding your kids accountable for their actions? Like, what age do we start holding children accountable for their actions? Meaning, one's out here doing bad things. And a lot of time you get people saying things like, "Oh, well, that's because the dad isn't in the house," or they're being raised in a single household, or that's because the parents are out partying all night and not disciplining the child or whatever. When do we hold children accountable for their actions?
Or stop blaming parents.
Stop blaming parents. Exactly. When? Anybody?
I mean, that's. I think it's multifaceted. I think there's a lot that goes into answering that question, because you do have parents who still participate in the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You still have parents who champion those types of activities. So I guess you start holding kids accountable when you have parents who can be held accountable. I guess that's the short of it for me.
That's a loaded question. I'm not loaded. It's if we're. It depends on what are we talking about. When do we start holding kids responsible for actions as it pertains to sexual activity? Are we talking about school incidents? Are we talking about what are we talking about? Because I think you have to attack every situation with a different set of parameters.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and that's a great question. So let's talk about this terrible incident that happened in Darlington. Shout out. I don't want to say shout out. Condolences.
Condolences for sure.
Condolences.
Yes.
For sure.
Are going out to the Johnson family. It just makes me sad as a mother. And I don't know if you guys heard the story. I don't really want to too much.
You don't want to put that. I know.
I get it.
I'm gonna say,
Yeah, I don't want-
with this one for us to not talk about that one specifically,
Yes.
because
Right.
it is local
Yes.
and it is recent.
Yes.
Right.
And we definitely don't want it to appear like
Pouring salt in the wound.
on either side.
Right.
Because, and I'll say
Yes.
this and then we can move on. We're going to talk about parent accountability. However, in the end, there are two families that lost kids in this,
Yes.
and you don't want to be on either side, and it's a tough, sensitive topic.
Yes.
So I would say we leave the Darlington situation alone for now and maybe look at it from a different angle. For me, I would say, as far as holding parents accountable, holding kids accountable, I think to what both gentlemen have said is spot on. It is very multi-layered, multifaceted, and it also things you also have to take into consideration, not just situational, but then it even becomes at some point age, right? Age and maturity. So let's just say you have kids that have grown up to be entitled. I don't like to use the word spoiled because I think it's used the wrong way to negatively impact our kids, but that's a whole other subject. But let's just say very entitled, little disciplined, allowed to do whatever, right? And that may very well be true and have led to their brattish, out of
Yes.
control behavior. But at what point does that entitled kid become an adult and we stop blaming the parents? Because we've seen kids come from the best of parenting and end up being assholes. And we've seen kids come from the worst of parenting and end up being the best of society. So it's really complex. It's almost like you want to drill it down a little bit more and talk about some specifics.
Well, I'm going to say this in it. Like my son, he's going to be 20 soon. And he, like, he didn't have to want for anything when he was coming up. Thank God for that. So sometimes I look at myself and I be like, maybe I should have let him want for something, or not to sound mean, but to know the struggles of, you know, getting things on his own, or not waiting until he's like this age now where, um, not saying that I beat him up, but I'm like on him now because he is getting ready to be 20 years old. And, he is my baby still. But when am I going to let go?
See,
When am I going?
that's the key right there. That's I think that's a very big uh, elephant in the room. A lot of us as parents, we don't like to let go. I know personally, I've got three kids, two biological, one I raised. And one thing that I made sure I told my kids growing when they were growing up, there's going to come a point when I can't answer for you. I don't care how much I want to. I don't care how bad it's going to hurt me. There's going to be a point that I can't answer for you.
Yeah.
So I need you to understand that you need to start taking responsibility for the things that you're doing.
Two things real quick though. Okay, so I think there's going to be a difference in where you're speaking about, maybe taking it easy, or some say coddling, or keeping your child in that kind of tight knit thing, as compared to them being prepared into going into the world and having responsibility, taking care of bills,
Yeah.
that thing. And then you're talking about another situation where we're talking about young people actually going out committing violent acts.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, many of us as parents, depending on how you were raised and your upbringing, you adjust how you raise your child depending on what you went through. So, I'm from the switches, extension cords,
Facts.
era of disciplining that I received, and most of it I deserved. But I'm saying that type of upbringing, to whereas when you carry and you remember these things, so I could not even. I have three sons. I could never see hitting my son with an extension cord. Now I disciplined them, but there was different levels. My sister is the same way. We were all raised the same way, but how we remember these things and certain things you don't want to carry on. But then for every action, there's a reaction. So when you take certain things away, or you don't, take those kind of measures, the child that you're raising is going to respond and act differently too. So it's just really hard trying to have that balance. But since most of us don't communicate to the next generation how, you might not want to do this, or then it's like, as a parent, you're kind of rolling the dice and seeing what works. So if some of us, I wasn't, but some of us are fortunate enough to have gotten that kind of instruction to where you might not make those mistakes. So, but I think it's an extreme difference when if we're going from the violence and the gunplay type of stuff, and then we're talking about actually preparing the children for life.
Yeah.
Which there's things that are similar, but
I think it overlaps. Go ahead, Veronica. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I forgot what I was going to say. It was something containing to, how you was raised. See, I was raised in a very strict household, very strict. And that's how I've been raising my son. Like I said before, he couldn't go over to sleepovers, and no one could come over to the house and sleep over unless it was like my nephews or something like that. But now, like, trying to raise kids like our parents raised us is hard because they feel like we are so mean. I mean, I felt like that when, towards my parents as well, but it's to the point where it's scary now because there's so much going on, and you don't want to run them off or scare them off, or however it is. You don't want them to leave the nest earlier than they should.
Well, let me ask you this. Are we talking about accountability versus responsibility, right? So a lot of what we've talked about so far is how do we teach our kids to be responsible, right? So part of your challenge with Chad is teaching him responsibility, right? And what is that metric or barometer that you know that you see when you say, okay, he can handle the responsibility of being an adult. On the flip end, when we're talking about some of the more serious things, such as gun violence, such as we're seeing on a national level where parents are now being held
Yeah.
accountable,
Right.
right? I think that goes into the difference between accountability and responsibility, right? When do we hold our kids accountable
Yeah. Let's stick with that.
for their actions,
Yeah.
their behaviors, their mistakes, and not necessarily place all the heat and heaviness on the parent?
Yeah.
I believe you have that right to want to hold them accountable if you've armed them properly. When you put, I feel like if you've given them what they need, to handle these situations, then you should hold them accountable. But I believe that I do also believe that parents are hypocritical sometimes. Where did that gum come from? And not acknowledging that they have not prepared their children properly to go out there. So I feel like you have the right. If I tell you that this, don't put your hands on the stove, I've trained you from not just late, not when it's just the time for that. I'm saying from when you were young, because that's when that's when you start sowing those seeds young. Right. It's too late when the situation has arisen.
At what point do we as a society stop holding? I'm about to call you by your government name.
That's fine.
I'm not gonna do that.
You can
Stop holding voodoo
right
accountable for his children's actions, and holding those children, i.e., adults or about to be adults, accountable for their own actions and behaviors. And I'll give an example real quick. And this is a little bit dark, but it's in the ether right now. So you have Ricky Smiley, right? Comedian Ricky Smiley, who lost his son a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
right.
To a drug overdose, right? And he recently wrote a book, and he's been talking about his pain and his grief, and how he was a tough love father, but he tried to give his child everything at the same time. But he is carrying the burden of losing his son and what more he could have done for his 32-year-old son.
Right.
Was there something he did,
No,
right?
Right.
And now in the midst of that, right, as I'm watching Ricky tell his story, and I actually ordered his book, today we had Rich Homie Quan, the rapper. His funeral was held today.
Right.
He lost his life in essentially the same way, an overdose. Now, I know it's still some speculation about it, but in the end, that's what it was, right? And you listen to his dad at his funeral. I don't know if anyone saw that. But you're hearing the dad tell the story of being there for his son, even though his son may have come through the street way or street adjacent, right? Every kid wants to be hood, and they hood adjacent, the juice box kids. Mm-hmm. And he's carrying that same weight. And it got me to wondering and thinking today as I was preparing for our conversation, you have two black men who were there for their kids. Not saying they did everything right, not saying they had all the answers, but they lost their kids who were adults, both in their 30s.
Right.
Right? Do we as a society look at those dads and say, what did you not give those boys? What did you not do?
Of course not.
Right. No. But that's the conversation.
Well, no,
right?
but I think, again, I don't know if that's applicable to every situation. So if I have my son, if I am I've never sold drugs. I don't know what you sell nothing for. But if I was raised in this, if my parents were sold drugs or bank robbers or whatever, okay, they raised me in an environment. They feed me this. info. This is how I understand that you do these things. Okay, this so you're going to carry that. Now you can make a decision. You know, you have free will to say I want to do that or I don't. But this is what I've been fed. Okay, I do believe that the parent now are they responsible for the child's actions? No, but there some accountability that you have to take.
Yeah.
Yes. So in those situations, those are grieving parents. You're always going to wonder. It don't even have to be that extreme. Somebody, it could be something a little more subtle, like, man, what did I do wrong? That's just a good parent guessing or trying to seek or find an answer. Like, is there something did I miss something? Is there something I could have done?
Right.
That's different
Yeah.
than creating an environment where that's all the child's being fed. So of course you should be accountable.
But I think a part of that too goes back to that understanding. Well, in my mind, that accountability comes from responsibility. I can't be accountable if I had no responsibility to begin with. So in essence, as parents, we should be teaching our children from a young age. I look at it this way. I remember, and I can only speak about myself. When I was in my early 20s, when we first started having kids, my wife and I used to drink in front of the kids. I would curse in front of the kids. It didn't matter who was around. I'd watch the videos, the movies with the strong language. And I started paying attention to that my kids, although, it was stuff that I didn't want them to do, it was stuff that they were picking up because of the things that I was inviting in.
Yeah.
So as parents, a part of that accountability does fall on us because while they were young, what did we allow them to get themselves entangled with? But as they're growing, as parents also, we should be trying to teach them what a productive citizen looks like, what kind of things they should be aspiring to when it comes to adulthood, how they should be living. We can't control the things that they gravitate toward per se, because you have how can I say it? I'm going back to Ricky Smiley. You give your kids everything so that they want for nothing. You coddle, quote unquote, them so that they know that they're loved. But still, as they mature and they get older, they tend to turn to things that they feel make them feel good. And some things you just don't have the answer for.
Some things you don't have the answer for.
And yeah, some things you don't have the answer for, and because kids they start having friends outside of who you want them to be friends with.
Girl, you better say it.
You know what I'm saying? So they can get with the wrong crowd and persuade them to act a certain way or to, I know you're supposed to have your own mind. We teach our kids that you need to be a leader, not a follower. But sometimes, they want to be with the cool kids, the ones that's doing this and the ones that's doing that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's why a lot of times when people say, well, I blame the parent because it starts at home. Okay, it does start at home.
Start at home, yeah.
But if you're doing all you can do at home, you raised them how you was raised when you was coming up, but they still got with the wrong crowd.
It had nothing to do
It
with
had
what was
nothing-
fed
yes.
into them. And I think that leads to a bigger conversation for us as a society. Now, there are some instances in which parents do need to be held accountable. Going back to the school shootings, we do need to take a closer look, and I'm glad that in certain situations we are, in which, you have young kids that had access to big guns
Right. Yeah.
walking through your house.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. I'm not the perfect mom. I'm not going to say I am. My kid has struggled with his mental health. I'm a tough mom. My child ain't got no door on his room right now. I ain't had one for 3 years, and I ain't gonna apologize about that. Now, I'm not saying that's solving any problems, but ain't nobody gonna tell me he was walking around with some shit in my house I ain't know about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? No, we not playing that. And so I do think on some levels we do have to take into account parents who have blatantly ignored things that were warning signs and said, "Oh, not my kid," or "My kid is not like
Mm-hmm.
that," right?
Mm-hmm.
And but then on the flip end, I think before, when something happens with a person, with a child, with a, or whatever, I think we need to be cautious before we say, well, what's going on with the parents? What happened there?
Yeah.
Because again, Voodoo has three sons. Two of them could be the next presidents of the United States, and one could be a hellion. I'm not putting that out there,
Oh
but
yeah,
you know what
no
I'm saying.
doubt.
But the one that's the hellion, that's the one we begin assessing. Well, he used to let him do X, Y, Z. This, and that, and the other, and that was a dad doing everything he could to save all his babies.
Right.
So that's my little 22 cents on it.
It's personality. Everybody has their own personality.
Mm-hmm.
As babies, you can tell the personality that this child is going to have. Watching my kids grow up from toddlers to adults, I can honestly say that they had the same personality as a small person, as a infant or toddler that they have now. It just wasn't. They weren't able to vocalize back then, but they did the same things back then that they do now. My oldest daughter, she was an antagonist to her siblings as a toddler. She would be in a stroller and she would run people over and laugh about it. Today she ain't in the stroller, but she'll do little nitpicky things just so that she can laugh at people about it. So it's about personality. People going to gravitate to things that they like. So when it comes to this idea of responsibility or accountability for our children, when they become conscious or cognizant of who they are, I mean, there's nothing the parent can do. You like the things you like because at some point you tapped in and got a hold of something that made you say, I ain't ever putting this down. This is going to be with me forever. And that's just what life is.
Yeah.
Don't. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brownie.
No, I was gonna get to a comment, but go ahead.
I also believe that some parents, need to stop being hypocritical about their kids. People know, for the most part. Now we don't know everything our children do. Then nobody knows. But
But you
people,
know everybody ain't lying on your child.
That's
right.
You know when that teacher done
That's-
called you
that-
about your kid acting
This is
the
what
F
I'm saying.
up.
Exactly.
You know.
and it doesn't. You're not doing your child any justice, and you're certainly not doing the community any justice by
Exactly.
sitting there denying what you know to be true just because you don't want to be embarrassed or to save face or whatever, instead of like maybe getting some help or attacking the problem. And that's a lot of it right there.
And some of it comes from children pushing boundaries. I worked in a prison for a year back in my 20s, and there's this one inmate. The one thing he used to say, I mean, he would now. A lot of people don't know that they still get drunk in prison. They still do drugs, everything. So whatever you got on the street, they got in there. And this guy was always high. And every time I talked to him, he would say, "Well, my mama always told me I wasn't S."
Got to be careful with what you speak.
The words
It's
you put
it's
in.
how you program your kids.
Yeah.
And it don't have to be anything big. It can be the smallest little, boy, you always acting like your daddy. If his daddy in jail, if his daddy was always getting into stuff, if his daddy was, these are the things, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be mindful.
Tongue.
And I mean, a lot of us who watch the show are older now, but a lot of us have grandkids. We can still influence our children. My mom, when my youngest daughter was a baby, she used to like to push the high chair around the kitchen and climb on the counters to get snacks or whatever. And I used to be like, "Girl, you better stop before you fall." And my mom, she was like, "Wait, you got to listen to the things you're saying, because she not thinking about falling while she climbing. But once you put it out there, once it's in her mind, then it's likely for it to happen." And it was like almost every time I said it, she would fall. But then when I stopped saying it, the baby quit falling. So it's the things that we program into our kids' heads.
And that's why they say the power is in the tongue.
That's right.
And we have to be careful. I get on my mom a lot. And my mom is set in her ways. My mom is what, 70?
Did she ask you to tell her age to these people? Okay.
My bad.
Terrible.
But mom is up there. And I have to tell my mama, like,
I know
"Mama,
she trained you better than that. See? Perfect example.
Yes, she did. But I have to tell, like, mom, and that's why I'm always careful. I try to watch what I say. I've always, when it comes to my son, Chad, I always try to be careful as far as like cursing around him. And, even now to this day, and he's about to be 20 years old in a couple of weeks, like, I try not to curse around him. We'll talk about you later. I try not to watch movies with a lot of violence and cursing, like have the TV up loud where he can hear. Like, I'm still to this day is like that. I've always been that way. It's nothing wrong if you're that way towards your kids. I'm just saying that's how I am. But yeah, there is power in the tongue. And I want to get this slide comment right quick. He said there is one thing I never wanted to do was make my parents look bad or embarrass them. I'm 59 years old and I still have that mentality in me. And that's me too. Like, I still like think about things.
From the perspective of, and my mom, I still have
Yes.
my dad, but my mom is gone, and I think about that all the time. What would Linda think?
Right.
What would Linda
I ain't
think?
And
like
that's
that.
what I tell Chad. I always be telling him, I said, listen, you're not only representing yourself when you
You
out here in these
representing
streets.
me.
You're representing me as well. Do you know who I am?
Listen,
Girl,
listen, I
you
don't,
are my spirit
I
and
don't think I
moms.
nothing
That
about
is
that.
that good guilt. Listen here, I can get my child to act right real quick. You out here representing me. Do you know who I am?
I
Okay.
don't
Do
think.
you
I don't
know
think
what
nothing about
folks
that.
will say, are saying, because your little ass acting the fool? Yes, that's that good mom guilt right there.
I ain't never had that. Even though I always held my parents high esteem, that ain't never been a thought. The reason I don't do the crazy stuff is because I don't want to look stupid. But my thought ain't never been, well, I ain't want to make my mama look bad because
Lord.
my mama gonna be who she is regardless. It's on me. You know what I'm saying?
And
But I mean, but
that's
I get
true.
it.
Yeah,
I
that's
get it.
true.
That's how a lot of people
Well,
raise their kids, though.
Yeah.
my
That's
mother's not here, but I make sure, like, I know my actions and what I do. I still try to make my mother proud.
Yes.
And it's
Absolutely.
not being that you're not being your own person, because I definitely respect where you're coming from. It is, I think, to me, it's kind of old school. It goes back to that sentimentality of you're bigger than, you're not bigger than the world, and there's things bigger than you. You're aspiring and want to be held accountable for something other than yourself. So if I'm being held accountable to how this looks on my mom or my dad or even my sisters and brother, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's not all about you. But one thing I'm going to say real quick, um, parents, listen, when you having a problem with your child's teacher, that's between you and your child's teacher. You can cuss that teacher out from here to China. Your child should not be a part of that
Right.
conversation. Your child should not see that conversation. I can remember one time, and I wasn't a bad kid in school. I was actually, because my mama ain't play. She was that person that would come and jack your butt up right in front of the whole class. But I remember there was a teacher one time that I had a problem with, and all I know is my mama said I'm gonna come up there and handle it. Teacher came to the office, and my mama made it clear to me when I got home that day, and you gonna sit your ass in her class and behave like you been doing. Now I know, cause I know Linda, that she showed every part of her behind, but I also knew that it was my mom's job to handle that situation and not mine. And in the end, that was still an adult to be respected. And we have too much of, not just with teachers, but with adults in general, we letting kids challenge adults.
Yeah. It's bad.
I don't think
These teachers get it.
I don't
I couldn't be no teacher.
I don't believe that we're gonna be able to turn back that clock to those days.
Yeah.
Any, I think those times are
Gone.
gone.
Well, I will say this. If we don't turn back the clock, the same way those times are gone, those pacifist teachers that have allowed it for like the last 15, 20 years, they don't exist no more. This younger
Right.
crop, they coming along, and they coming with the attitude of, your little Johnny hit me, your little Johnny cussed me. I'm going to call for a Swiffer mop to mop his little ass up and some silver bracelets to take me out. So I'm just saying, parents, everybody don't think your baby cute and special and different. I'm not saying
Nobody cares about your child after they leave the house,
Definitely.
except for you're the only person that really cares.
Definitely.
Nobody else cares. And what it is these kids are sent out thinking with this, and not all of them, because there's a great many of them who have plenty good sense. But the entitlement and the all of that, like the world cares, nobody cares. So
That, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. What I was going to say, there's also a different level of tolerance with adults these days.
Yeah.
Back in the day, adults on some level did try to they wanted you to be successful. So they tried different means of communicating or trying to get through to children. But these days, you don't have that. You don't have that type of tolerance. There aren't that many people who care to even give a little. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what you're doing tomorrow. I just came here to do my job. You either gonna sit and behave, or I'm getting you out of here.
But you still do have some teachers that really care.
I mean, you do, but not. It's not like it. It's not like it used to be.
Well, in fairness to teachers now, and Victor, I disagree with your comment that kids challenging adults is not a bad thing, because it's all about the how. And there's levels to it, and a child being disrespectful to an adult is just out of line. Let your parent handle that. But to your point about teachers not caring, I think teachers are they're so tired, and they're coming in now. So think about it. Now, I'm probably I know I'm the oldest at this table. Okay. By 6 months. Okay. I come from a generation, right, where I remember it was a big thing when they sent the paper home to opt out of being paddled at school. Not opt in, to be opt out, right? So that meant if your mom and dad ain't signed that paper, you could get your butt cut at school, right?
Right.
Now we're at the stage, right? And I'm not debating corporal punishment, but I'm saying we've gone from that where it looked like, teachers care more, blah, 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 to now where a teacher can't even raise her voice at a kid, has to censor everything they say to a kid. So where you may see some apathy is because depending on what I say, how I say it, who I say it to, my livelihood could be threatened. And oh, by the way, for failing your kid who came into my class late every day, had their cell phone, and I had to argue with them, you, and their mama and granddaddy about this cell phone that they shouldn't even had out. Now I'm failing them because they didn't do the work. And now I'm sitting in a conference downtown at the district office. And listen, I'm the first one to advocate for my child. I always have. But I'm saying we have disrespected teachers so much that we're not getting the best product out of them. And a huge part of it is because parents have decided that teachers are glorified babysitters. They're not in the game of education. One of the main rules I had with my child, if he would ever cut up in class, you ain't going to cut up in class, and I'm going to tell you why. Whether you want to learn or not, that's on you. But what you ain't going to do is disturb it for the other 26. Right. And I would have teachers tell me all the time, I wish I had more parents like you, because they're getting a direct opposite. I can remember Roy Ann Jolly stopping me at her because I was so heated with my kid, stopping me at the door because I had a whole switch that I tore off her tree. No, ma'am, you can't come up and deal me like that. I was about to tear his butt from the frame.
Right.
But, that's just...
Okay, so teachers are kind of right now in the same light almost as police officers, because we want to advocate for the good ones, but there's plenty of not so good ones to go around too, and a lot of times the lines get blurred because they're all having to teach to the same audience of kids. So, because we do have plenty of teachers that are coming out the gate right now that probably should not be teaching, but because there's such a lack and a want and a need for teachers, somebody's got to fill the hole. So that's why you have, for every 3 teachers that are working hard, trying to get to these kids, trying to get them to the next level, then when you have that one that's having a threesome with her students.
Right.
What?
Lord
Right.
Jesus.
I mean, this is real
Right.
talk right now.
Yeah.
And it's more than it ever was. I don't know where y'all was when I was in school.
Teachers.
'Cause there was a couple. There was quite a. I don't know what that is, but
Oh, sorry.
I just
I
got
was
questions
looking
for
at you.
the
So-
mamas, not
No,
even
because
the daddies, the
so-
mamas that's around it. Because you
but-
run up on my child. We
Wait.
gonna have
Right.
oh, wait a minute now.
Wait.
But wait, they can't. I'm gonna let you get to it.
Go
'Cause-
ahead, go ahead,
but
go
they
ahead.
coming like these new teachers.
They are.
They don't have those same qualms and those same kind of whatever as some of our other teachers had. And if in our age group, you remember, maybe Veronica too, you should be right there too.
Y'all love putting out somebody.
You remember,
Okay.
all right, but you remember that time frame where all the movies came out. It was 100 movies out about these fighting teachers trying to fight for the kids.
Yeah.
I don't remember
You had
that.
you damn near
Like the
scared.
early 90s.
You had
don't
you
remember?
damn near scared to go to school.
Right.
Like, what
Joe
school they go
what
to?
was his name?
Listen.
We ain't even
Joe-
talking about
I
Joe
remember
Jackson.
Lean on Me.
Yeah.
Lean
Wait a
on
minute.
Me.
Lean
You
on
had
me.
Lean on Me. You had the one with the Latin kids.
Yes.
I said that there was
The
another
English
one.
joint where they was
Then
writing
there was one
poetry.
with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
What you had all of these things, but the main thing was, all right, these teachers are gonna fight for these kids no matter what, and we're gonna. I don't care if you're putting out switchblades. We're gonna fight whatever you do.
Pipes and chains.
Today, Joe Clark
Look
wouldn't
here.
last 5 seconds in
Not
today's
at all.
You know what?
area in this arena. You
It's about-
know what I'm saying? So
Y'all don't think Joe Clark would make it into school?
No.
No.
Joe would have been shot
Joe
a long
would've
time
been
ago, bro.
shot and stabbed a long time
Long
ago.
time
Joe-
ago. Joe would have
That's
been out of
not
here.
good.
but
It's
what
that-
I'm saying is the and I have I may or may not be involved with somebody who's in this arena, but the pool and the entitlement that these new teachers feel when they going in, it's you can't separate the attitudes of the young people without including these teachers, because a lot of them are young too, and they're coming into
Fresh out of school.
right, and they have these same mindsets sometimes as their students.
Right.
They just happen to be on the other side of the board. So
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like I said, it goes back to that intolerance thing. Tolerance isn't just a one-way street. You know, it's not like teachers not tolerating students, but it's more so what society tolerates. Because, like Easy said earlier, you can't say what you want pretty much to anybody these days.
No.
As a man, I can't walk up to any woman and say, "Hey, beautiful, how you doing today?" Because that might be seen as sexual harassment. As a person in the church, I can't even say, I don't know if y'all are up on a lot of current events, but you can't even say the Jews killed Jesus without there being mass hysteria in the world. So
That's true.
intolerance is this thing where it's about what society accepts, and society doesn't accept people who are stern and strict and are trying to set boundaries. And what children are the perfect scapegoat, because all children are going to do is push boundaries. That's
By design, that's who
what
they
they're gonna
are.
do.
That's how they learn. That
Exactly.
you know, my child growing up, watching him push boundaries, I loved it. It was my pet peeve and my greatest thing I love to watch, because it's how he learned. You know what I'm saying? How far you can take things. The onus was on me and his dad to show him, but you can't go but this
Right.
far. And to Tyrone's point, as a society, we don't want. Let me say it differently. We don't want boundaries on our kids. I want them on yours.
facts. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I want them on yours, but I don't want them on mine.
we need to read.
I want you to pat down them little kids over there that might be bringing in guns, switchblades, and all that. But why did you go with my child's
Right.
book bag?
Yeah. We shouldn't. It shouldn't be
No.
like that though.
What did we say? What's the hot button topic these days when it comes to black people? I can't even think of what the word is.
DEI.
No,
Please don't say that.
when you suspect me of doing something just because I'm black. Is
Oh,
it
profiling.
profiling?
Racial
Did you just
profiling.
are you profiling my child just because they're a black
Right.
child? Why you
Right.
not looking in the other kids' bag? Nah, I mean, I agree. I agree.
And there is some of that. We're not discounting that by any stretch of the imagination. The problem is every situation and incident gets so heightened, and we say it's all profiling. No, your little Johnny is a badass. He back there passing out candy in the back of the room that's got your liquor in it, and you ain't paying attention. You know, everything gets heightened, and I stand on. I'm gonna stand on this, and I know a lot of people disagree with me. But when we're talking about children and we're talking about minors, especially in school situations, unless it's egregious, and there are very few situations that are egregious, your challenge with that teacher, educator, administrator is between you and them. Because in the end, your kids still got to go back in their classroom. Your kids still got to go back in their school. Your kids still needs them to learn, to be educated. So if you hype your kid up, I ain't got to listen to you. My mama gonna cuss you out again. Now what? Now what we gonna do?
Yeah.
Right?
And you do get that. Like,
And guess what? When that child starts working, I work with a lot of businesses for years, and I always laugh when they're telling me about they don't want to hire, and I tell parents this all the time. They don't want to hire the kid whose parent put in the application, whose parent called about the interview, because they know that's the same parent when they reprimand their kid on their job for doing something wrong, when they tell their kid no they can't have a day out. And I'm saying kid, I'm talking about grown-ups. When they tell that kid, that grown kid, no, you can't have a day off, they got to talk to the parent about it.
right.
They got to talk to the parent about it. And so they don't like to hire grown-ups whose mama and daddy helped them get a job. They don't, because it's too much of a problem.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I really feel like Victor White is going off in the comments, and he's making some points I think we should address.
Go ahead, Pootie.
This first one, he's got about two I want to talk about. The first one, he says, "I'm my child's protector, but ultimately they are their own advocates. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can do anything to my child. Watch that mess." And he also says, at the end of the day, as an adult, you shouldn't engage with a child in a hostile situation. If you do, as an adult, you're worse than the child. But I guess the child is always wrong. And this bottom one, Tyrone, which he's bringing up to you.
Yeah.
He says, "Tyrone, you can do whatever you want as long as you can handle the consequences that come with it. Stand on your principles, but why speak to someone who didn't ask to be spoken to? It's the unsolicited comments that get men in trouble, and it has to stop."
Okay, we're not going
Well,
there today.
well, I think the very first part of Victor's that comment he addressed to me kind of kills everything he said prior to that, because we can do whatever we want to do as long as we can handle the consequences. So when it comes to your children, especially if they're unruly, as an adult who is responsible for that child, it is my responsibility to say something, because either you're going to want me to correct them. I had a nephew that stayed with us for a little while, and he was from up north, and he used to love to say, "These people don't know me because I'm from." I was like, "Bro, do you really think that matters? Just
Right.
because you're from New York?"
Yeah.
For some of us, we used to love those kids when they came around, because that gave us the excuse, the do whatever we want. You know what I'm saying? The jump them or whatever. But that got me off. that got me off the point. What I'm getting at essentially is that when it comes to your children, if they're unruly, either you allow the adult that's going to be gentle with them to put them in place, or they're going to be at some point dealing with the penal system. And when it comes to police,
They ain't
They
nice to
don't.
no
They ain't gonna.
nobody.
They ain't gonna care.
They ain't polite.
They ain't gonna. They don't care what you got to say in the background. You can yell. You can curse. You can stomp. It don't matter. If you put your hands on them, guess what? You and your kid gonna be going right down there together.
And let me clarify something. I'm not talking about children not being able to advocate for themselves. Again, I go back to I loved watching my child learn his boundaries because a huge part of what I was teaching him was how to advocate for yourself the right way. But we're not talking about situations in which a child is trying to respectfully advocate for themselves, right? Those usually aren't the situations that blow up between parent and a teacher because a kid was trying to advocate for something they needed or something like that. It is usually more often than not the child has decided they want to challenge the teacher or the teacher should not have corrected them on something and the parent because that child got their feelings hurt or got embarrassed. The parent wants to come and show their behind on the teacher in front of the kid. And I'm not ever saying don't show your behind. I'm not saying that. I have done it when necessary. All I'm
Certainly,
saying
I have
is
too.
I have done it behind closed doors where because in the end my kid still has to learn, to your point, Tyrone. Mama can't walk in every room and fight for
Exactly.
you.
Mm-mm.
And yes, that teacher was out of line and I'ma check that and you ain't gonna have that problem no more. But guess what? Guess what?
You still the child.
You still the child. And it's going to be some situations where you have to take some shit that is dead wrong, but to stay alive, you're going to have to suck that up and find another way of how to address it in a different time, in a different manner. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm talking about. The situations we're hearing about where teachers are arguing with kids about having their cell phones out. Teachers are arguing with kids because they're coming into class late. They're being disruptive in class. They're being disrespectful in class. And the parents want to come and check the teacher because the teacher checked the child.
I don't believe we
what I
exist
have
in a society or an environment anymore that's going to allow. I think the teachers have to stay in their space and
But what is
So
their
what are their
space?
yeah?
to
What are they?
educate right now.
Well,
is,
now we're
wait,
not
wait,
even
listen.
letting them educate. Go
What
ahead.
I'm saying is anything outside of, I don't believe that teachers are going to continue to be allowed to have that space where you might see um, this kid might be showing out, but he's showing out because of whatever he might have going on at home, or she might be showing out. You know, there used to be a time where they used to specifically target little black boys for anything,
Right.
and use that as an excuse to throw them in another class, or suspend them, or do whatever. But the way things are being cultivated right now, teachers don't even have that leeway or are given that space to even kind of reach out to have that caring. Anything outside of the X's and O's on this board and what we trying to get across, everything outside of that is going to have to be cut off because now they liable for anything. Something that an action that can be intended as being a caring, loving act could be interpreted as something else or whatever. So I don't believe there's no time that where I understand why you would want to engage with the child, but I just don't believe that you can allow yourself to even be in that space no more. I personally believe that the teacher should have anybody, people in the classroom or accessible to the classroom that are strictly there for disciplinary actions. So the teacher's allowed to teach, and if
Right.
there's anything outside of that parameter, then let them deal with it, and it moves forward. You know, I understand why, these altercations and things happen, but I do not believe, that there should be a space where a teacher should be getting into it with the kid like
Yeah.
that. I understand why these things go that way, but the lines got to be drawn to be like, the minute it shows its face, I think you'd be like, all right, well, I can't deal with this. We need to
Yeah.
do something
But
else.
that
And I do feel like it should be more than one teacher in the classroom,
Yeah.
but
No,
they can't afford.
that's a whole
Or,
different subject
like-
because
What's that?
class overcrowding is a huge.
Yeah, I said I do feel like it
issue.
should be two teachers in a classroom, but I know that's not able to afford that for one.
They can afford
Maybe.
it. Let me say this. We and I'm talking about the United States of America, and this is getting way off the subject. We can afford as a society to do better in education than we do,
Hmm.
but we have the mentality that education is a privilege and not a
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
you
That's
know?
facts. Yeah.
Um, and to Voodoo's point earlier when he was saying, it's gotten to the point where teachers can only do the X's and O's. They can't even do that because now we want to dictate
what the truth
what
what
they're
the
teaching.
right.
Now we want, and let me be real clear. Let me y'all know I don't mind calling out Florence one since my kid didn't graduate. So, but let me be real clear. It used to be if you disagreed with what was being taught to your child, if you disagree, which was rare, there was a whole process of how it was challenged and how it was dealt with and how it was addressed. Now, it was just a few years ago, 2 years ago, Teacher of the Year, Florence District 1, she was Teacher of the Year for her school, teaching the curriculum that the school board approved. Parent didn't like the topic.
Mm.
Parent called up the same damn day. Long story short, teacher was put on notice for teaching what the district approved her to teach after she had been awarded Teacher of the Year. She was harassed, felt unsupported by her school, felt unsupported by the school board,
Mm.
that she ended up leaving the year early. And they didn't care.
Mm.
Because one parent had a problem with
Wow.
what was being taught. And let's be clear, yes, it was around race.
Mm.
But what happened to a process? And why did other children get deprived learning the history
Mm-hmm.
because one kid had a problem with it? So we're not even at the stage anymore of let teachers be teachers, because they can't even do that. They can't even do that when they're teaching what the district, what the state Department of Education has approved, because one parent can create a ruckus.
Mm.
And now that has to be thrown out.
Listening to some of these comments, or looking at some of these
Yeah.
comments, I'm gonna let somebody else read some of these, but I will say that some of you do have points, and some of y'all need to be homeschooling. If you need to homeschool your children, according to some of the stuff I'm reading, and two, some people would have more of a leg to stand on if they actually participated in a lot of these parent-teacher conferences and things like that.
That's-
I had to go to parent-teacher conference for all my nieces and nephews because, well, none of their people would show up for them. So I went to all of them, and I went to my kids. But there's a very small percentage of people who do. Sometimes it's a time thing, work schedule, but
Yeah.
these that setting sometimes is more conducive to getting something done, or at least getting your point across
Yeah.
in that setting with the parent teacher conference. So I would,
And even like when I couldn't make parent teacher conference, especially when I started my fitness journey, working at McLeod and stuff, and it seemed like all the time the parent teacher conference will fall on the time I have classes or whatever. But I will always make sure I reached out to the teacher in an email or some type of way to get in touch with the teacher to see what is going on. Let them know, hey, I can't make it to parent teacher conference or something like
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say I rarely made parent teacher conferences because I stayed in touch. I knew for me the better way to advocate for what my child needed and to stay on top was to do it outside the parent teacher conference times, because those slots are
Yeah.
quick, and like you said, it's usually during the time that's not convenient for you. So I always try to do it a week before, or like you said, always in constant contact with his teachers. I always still find it to this day astounding that some parents don't even realize their kid is failing until a report card come home. Like, how?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How?
And Brittany, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no, go ahead.
Brittany, her comment. She said 9 out of 10. The child isn't the problem; it's the adult around them. We are the ones who shape them. That may be true, but that going back to what we were saying, it's not always the parent though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can raise your child to the best ability that you know what I'm saying, and that child still go down the wrong path.
That's true.
So I
I
don't.
mean, I think especially the last few years, ever since Michael Brown got killed, we talk a lot about having the talk. You know, we've talked to our kids about making it home safe.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about this idea of our children being challenged or challenging teachers and adults who might, and going off of one of Vic's comments, who might have had a terrible upbringing themselves, we still have to have that talk. We have to let our kids know, yeah, they might have done you wrong, but instead of challenging them in front of the class, come and let me know. I had a situation similar to that. Again, speaking only about myself because that's the only experience I have. My youngest daughter, she was having a problem, and she was saying that this one guy who was over them was making comments about how the girls should be tougher because men should don't make them feel like that. And at first I was like, baby, maybe you misunderstood what he was saying because it was a basketball related thing. But when it came down to it, when she complained too much, instead of going to the teacher, I called and was like, hey, I need to speak to the athletic director. I want to sit down and have a meeting. Sometimes as parents, we have to take on that. We have to take on that role. I mean, it can be a hard thing, but how bad are we really advocating for our kids if all we want to do is accost teachers and not really meet the problem head on?
I gotta say something real quick.
Please.
Because I ain't gonna say nothing specific about what's going on in the comments, but I'm gonna say this. All right, so many of us have some sense of spirituality, right?
Yes.
Like at some point, I don't
Yes.
know what. So a lot of people believe in good and evil, God and the devil, heaven, hell,
Right.
yin and yang. Sometimes you got good kids, and there are kids, for lack of a better word, that I'm sorry, they're just fucked up.
They demon seed.
There are kids that, now I'm not saying that they cannot change. I'm not saying that, at some point, this change, whatever. But we've all gone to school with kids from every generation that it don't matter what you do. And I'm sorry, Veronica, that nigga gonna nig. He's gonna nig no matter what you do. You can help him out. You can be his friend in the lunch line. You can play sports with him.
Yes.
You can do all these things, male and female,
Right.
and they just that person. Now, sometimes later on, they become pastors. They become pillars of society.
Gotta get it out.
But when they was in school,
They was the most terrible.
they was fucked up. No matter what, you can be their friend. You can be. Hopefully, maybe you get in a fight with them, and you think that's gonna be it.
Right.
No,
Right.
they gonna keep going, and that's just in them. Like some people are passive, some people more athletic, some people is into science, some people are quote unquote comic book nerdy or whatever, and some people is just about.
Exactly.
That's what they do. So no matter what you do, you can be a nice teacher, you can care, you can don't care,
Right.
you can do this. That's going to be saying some things are in nature of a child. So it goes both ways. Right. So the ideology that is sometimes, a lot of times it is, we do got some bad teachers. We do have bad teachers. We have teachers that there's people on the school board that should not be on the school board right now.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, we do. If you are active and you follow these things, there are people that should not be on the school board right now, whether they board members or superintendents or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So they not alleviated from anything either. So, but there are situations that, the teacher may be doing all they can do without crossing the boundary. and that child might just be whatever. Me, I did not like school at all. I didn't like school, and I got tested early on. I ain't patting my back because it really don't mean shit, but genius level intellect. I was creative. I could do arts. I did murals on the school wall. Could not stand school. Had great teachers. I wasn't one of those that acted out, like, but I put
Wasn't
my
challenging.
wasn't challenging. Put my head down in class.
Let me say something about that. As the mom of a boy, especially a black boy, I have argued for years before he even started school that traditional school is not the fit for anybody, black, white, boy or girl. And parents, a lot of the things y'all are arguing about are the wrong things. Because one thing E.G. Oatman Black did was advocate for what her child needed. I knew that my child, smart as a freaking whip, but what he ain't gonna do is sit there for 30 minutes while y'all say, let's read on the mat. That ain't him. But what you gonna do, Miss Teacher, what you gonna do is find a way to teach him. So things I wasn't gonna argue with teachers about him having a cell phone. Take it, because he ain't supposed to have it. Because next week when I'm coming with a whole team, and we gonna work out how you gonna teach my kid. Because it ain't my fault, school district, that y'all still teaching these kids like we in one room schools from Little House on the Prairie days. But my kid is going to get the education that he deserves.
Let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Per Victor.
Oh,
I'm just saying he dropping. I mean, he feels
Yeah.
passionate about what he's saying,
Right.
but
How big it was working.
he's
some
making
damn
some
well.
points, right? So, and I'm gonna ask this question to y'all and to the room. He says teachers have more influence over our kids than the parents. If you think about it, 2 years of bad teaching will ruin a child for a lifetime. I'm gonna say something, then I'm gonna ask you.
Go ahead.
For me personally, I don't care what teacher was at any level of school I was in. None of them had more influence over me than my mother did, because you can act up and do all this stuff at school, but when you went home,
right.
it was do this. So, but I understand what he's saying, and I do believe teachers have a big influence. So I just want to know how y'all feel about what he said right there.
I do. That's actually the point I'm making. Parents do have more influence than teachers.
No, he's saying
Teachers have more influence than the
Okay,
parents.
no, parents have more influence, but we're not exercising that influence. That's what I meant. We're not exercising that influence, and what I mean, Victor, when I say we're arguing about the wrong things, we are. We are, because guess what? When I go to school board meetings, and I still go and ain't got a kid in school, we ain't there. We're not there. We're not there, y'all. We're not there. I'll tell this story. I love sharing stories about my child. My child was in the second grade. He was struggling. He was smart. Nobody could figure it out. I paid for an educational advocate to help me figure out why my child was struggling. Part of what she did, she had her team come in and watch my kid in his 2 classes. First thing she said, now they don't know who the kid is. They observed them for 30 minutes. Miss Oakman Black, if it was 25 kids in the classroom, 20 of them need advocates. That was problem 1, 2, and 3. But you ain't got parents coming arguing about that. Number 2, I always share this story. This was a kid who up until that point was failing the second grade. Me and his teacher had a whole damn argument because at the end of the school year, the second semester, my baby had straight A's in every damn thing, because I was blessed. I will say this. I was blessed to get the help that I needed to figure out what was the right way that Taryn Black had to learn, because y'all going to figure this out. And his teacher said, well, he failed the first half of the year, so why are we promoting him to the 3rd grade? Because he didn't fail it. We failed it. Me and you, ma'am, because we couldn't figure out why he wasn't learning. But you can't tell me a kid that was failing the first semester and get straight A's the second semester, they don't have the ability to learn. That's not a smart kid. We failed him. I share that story to say more parents are coming in arguing about BS. Again, why you took my kid's cell phone. Why my kid can't go to this recess. Why my kid can't go to second lunch. Why your baby can't read, and why you ain't making them people help your baby read? We ain't arguing. I will stand on this. We're not advocating for our kids the right way. We are not going to parent teacher conferences. We are not going to school board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't even showing up half the time for PTO meetings. So, yes, we are arguing about the wrong things.
Um,
That's true.
is Brittany Wheeler? She must be. Maybe she's a teacher because she says we have some kids that be with us, teacher, from six in the morning until 5 in the evening.
That's true.
And there was another good comment where somebody said, okay, Lois Parker, where she says they, meaning the teachers, do have a big influence when the parents are not parenting. Involved parents are a bigger influence.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree. Involved parents are the bigger influence. I will concede on this point. If you're not an involved parent, it is easier for a teacher or anyone, the streets for that matter, to have a bigger influence over your child than you if you're not an involved parent. I'll agree with that.
Again, speaking on myself, one thing that I learned raising my kids is that being an involved father matters even the more because
Say that.
my kids, every time they change schools, the first week or so, they would always come home. Dad, this teacher giving me a problem. You know, that first parent teacher conference, I would show up, and I wouldn't just be sitting there saying, "Yeah, okay." I was engaged. Okay, what do you say they need to do now?
Yeah.
What type of plan do you have? Like, what can we do to once they understand? And I hate to say it this way, but this is what came off to me. Once they see, especially with black kids, that the father is engaged, then they stop giving your kids a hard time.
Took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to ask: are we talking about kids in general, or are we talking about black children?
Black kids,
Yeah.
and all y'all mad at me for what I'm saying. I'm here to tell you, when you don't show up for your child, when that child's father is not showing up, they treat your kid differently.
They do.
They do. I'm not saying it's right. I've been the one to argue that it's wrong, but I know that my kid got a whole lot of stuff that other kid, and it used to make me cry because he had a dad that was gonna show up regardless. He had a mama that was gonna show up regardless.
Listen,
And I know a lot of times Taryn would be getting in trouble at lunch with other little kids who were getting pushed to the side, but because they know he had a
that's what I was
mama and
gonna
a
say.
daddy. I know this ain't Taryn. Girl, Taryn is the damn ring
right.
leader.
I knew my child was gonna be doing some stuff.
Exactly. It wasn't really Taryn. He's not like that. You saying that because Taryn mama and daddy show up.
Mm-hmm.
But the kid that he was throwing the milk carton with or whatever they were doing that you giving a hard time, that parent for whatever reason isn't showing up. And I'm here to tell y'all, when you don't show up for your kids the right way, if the only time you showing up is to fight and argue about some mess, your kid getting treated differently. If you ain't showing up at all, that kid is getting pushed
gonna get
on the
drugged,
back burner.
yeah,
They
man.
getting drugged. I'm trying to tell you.
I remember a few years ago, I was watching this thing. I forget the guy's name. He had this little series. This was before the pandemic, and he interviewed police. And he asked the police. He said, "Why do black people get treated worse than white people when it comes to traffic stops?" And the answer, I was almost befuddled. He said, "Because we know that white people most likely have representation, but the black people don't. Black people don't have lawyers on retainer, so we're gonna treat them how we want to. We're gonna make them pay. If it come down to it, we're gonna lock them up because it's more money for us when we got people when we fill in beds." The bottom line is representation. We got to have representation. If you want your kids to be treated better in school, you have to show up and represent for your child more than just showing up with Vaseline and with boxing gloves and ready to throw down. You got to be engaged so that when your child is making mistakes, like you just said, my child was not perfect. I knew that boy was going to be getting in. He was a boy. Boys are going to get into
right.
stuff. And when I showed up and the teacher said XYZ, okay, I'm going to handle that. And I handled it. It wasn't me just talking just to get out of the situation. Once we got home, I nipped it in the bud, If it happened again, then the problem's gonna be between me and you, and that's how it went. And we don't have enough parents doing that. You get a lot of, especially men, because we want our kids to like us. Let's go back to what Veronica was saying earlier. We want our children to not feel like they're being pushed away. But my dad was hard on me growing up. Today, my dad is like one of my best friends in this world, man. Me and my dad, when it comes to like conversations, we gonna have the talk. Whatever I need to talk about. He even tell me, look, just come to the house, even if you just want to sit down and go to sleep because you home. Like this is when it comes to us as parents, being an advocate for your kid doesn't mean just fighting, like fussing and cussing people out. It
Right.
means showing up.
Yeah.
It means being present, not only just to have something to say when somebody offends them, but also talk to them about why they feel offended and what can they do to get themselves out of these types of situations.
I feel like a lot of parents do not take time to sit down and actually talk to their child to figure out what is really going on with their child. And I can vouch that I think now that my son is older, like he don't want to sit down and talk to me.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to catch them while they're young, you know? If you don't catch them while they're young, they get, turn older and become teenagers, like 18, 19, and they're not going to want to really, sit down and talk to you. But if you start them young like that and actually having them sit down and you having that conversation with them, and my son know I love him.
And I don't even expect it at this age. From 17 to 25, I don't expect them to come to me with a whole lot of stuff because those are their years to find out who they are as adults.
Yeah.
After 25, that's when my son started picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Dad, what you doing? Hey, let me tell you about what happened." That's when the conversation starts. Once they start finding out who they are, and now they're trying to navigate this thing called adulthood. So, I guess to tie it back into what the conversation started off as, responsibility or accountability for our children comes.
Yeah, who's accountable?
Yeah, it comes. Well, it falls back on their own laps unless you're going to be that crutch. If you're gonna allow them to use you as a crutch, then you're going to be the one that's always going to visit them in the penitentiary, or always paying their bills for them, or always co-signing for things for them. I mean, at some point, you got to make them stand up on their own too.
I see a lot of discussion kind of going on the feed about influence and who's got more influence, and is it the teacher or the parents and stuff like this. I'm going to, by nature, just the natural order of things, we are all going to be influenced. We're talking about middle school, high school, whatever. We're going to be influenced by outside parameters. You can't help it. By middle school, hip hop and rock music and all that shit had already taken my brain over.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Music and art has dominated my life since I was a child. So those were my influences, Fortunately, my best friend, my brother, we hung around each other, so we kept each other out of trouble. I always hung around in the streets, but I was never of the streets. Mm-hmm. But I had many of my partners were of the streets.
That's because your influence wasn't your foundation.
Right. So the influence, like now my moral foundation, which is where I was going, that, that I had from my parents helped guide me through the majority of the muck and whatever it is. So there might be, things going on that I might have been around them. Remember back in the day, the skating rink was the big deal. All this stuff, like anytime entertainment that went on socially, I was right up in the mix. But I never partook of I wasn't into drinking alcohol and doing drugs and stuff like that. Not knocking anybody that was, but that just wasn't my thing. So I'm saying the influences are always going to be there. We are still influenced today by by things that go on.
Absolutely.
That never stops. but we are going to be guided by our moral principles that we are instilled with. Now, all of us are not fortunate enough to have that.
Right.
I was raised, and I make no bones about it. I tell people, I was raised in a violent household. You understand? Every kind of abuse that could go on went on in my household. You know what I'm saying? When I was a child in elementary school, I thought when you got mad, you punched the holes in the wall because that's what I saw. And until at some point, people started questioning because I was punching holes not only at home, I was doing it when I was out. Why is he doing that? I know where I learned it from later because that's what I saw until, something switched. Going to school and getting out, even though I never enjoyed school, it was still an escape for me because I wasn't in the house.
Right.
I didn't have to deal with all that turmoil and things like that.
Right.
Fortunately, I had teachers. They didn't know what was going on. Sometimes they kind of had an inkling. You come to school distraught, looking all whatever. But individual cases, different parameters for the child. And I just don't, right now, the kind of world that we're in now is not going to, these teachers don't have the luxury always of giving these children comfort when it could be needed.
So what do we do?
I don't
What's the
know.
answer?
I don't know. Let me ask AI. I know everything else.
But it does beg the reason. What is the answer? Because, you are right, Voodoo. Like, not just within school, but even within church, right? We are disconnected from church in a lot of ways for, in some instances, some very good reasons. But even within the church, they have to be protective, right? Because they have the same constraints.
Isn't it funny how that's parallel?
It's parallel, right? So, what is the answer now? It's not even, it used to be the neighbors to a certain extent, right? And now,
It's crazy.
It's not even that. So what do we do? And it does circle all the way back to the original question of how much accountability does a parent carry?
Brittany says 9 out of 10 is the parents' fault.
I disagree, and and the reason why I say that, again, going back to where I started. Now, if we're talking about younger kids, yeah, I would say middle school and under. I'm not gonna say it's their fault, right? But they're still in that realm of where they can bear more influence. But when we start talking about young adults, we're talking about teenagers and young adults. Again, we've all seen it where kids that have come from the worst circumstances, they've seen the violence, they've been a part of the violence, they've lived in poverty, they've lived in abandonment, maybe they lived in a quote unquote financially stable house but was getting the crap beat out of them, right? We've seen kids come from the worst circumstances and end up being the best human beings, the most productive. And then on the converse, we've seen those who've had everything given to them. We've seen those who've had really great parents, not just parents that spoiled them or made them feel entitled, but was trying to raise them the right way. And they end up being Satan's spawn. So at what point do you say, this ain't all on mama and daddy?
So she said that's not what she said. I ain't meant to cut you off.
Oh, okay.
So 9 times out of 10, the child is not the problem. It's the adults around them. So is that not saying that the adult is the problem?
I think she means
I
like,
think she's
Well,
Who's
I
influencing
don't
them?
understand. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I think she's talking about maybe like in the school system,
Yeah.
the teachers and
I
those.
think she's
She said the
talking more-
parent.
All right, so
I think she's talking more situationally because she was referring to something that Voodoo was talking about. So I don't.
No,
I don't-
okay, so she's saying, let me see if I can find her. Go ahead, Voodoo. Let me see.
I will say, all right, so I'm only qualified to speak for myself and my own opinion. So using myself as an example with my sons. So my sons were not raised. They were not raised in a 2-parent household with me and their mother. So, and I will be the first to say I am a very loving father, but I am definitely not the best. And I say that because and as I get older and as the boys have gotten older and the things I see them going through and dealing with, even when you think you're making a good decision as a father sometimes, or you're trying to be there when you're not in the household, there it is inescapable that they are going to encounter situations that would be better if you're there.
Right. That's a given.
Even if the situation in the house is not going to work with the two parents.
I slightly disagree.
Hold on, I'm going to say this. All right, so I'm going to say, all right, so I'm going to say something. This is very simple and trivial. All right, I let my son hold my Mustang some years ago. I called him. He's in Georgia. I said, son, you put oil in the car? But he got an oil change some months ago. Bad father on my part. If my son don't know how to do the tire, if it was a girl, I just happen to have boys. But if it was a female, no matter what, those little things. Oh, how do you go about this credit system thing or whatever? Just simple things, or even when you encounter society situation interacting with. He was in an accident and this truck driver was trying to tell him something, and I'm listening to the conversation. I'm trying to be dad on the phone, which I wouldn't have to be if I had given him those tools, but because we was in a separate household, I was not able to feed that to him. So I carry that as a father, but that's me, how I feel about it
I respect
and how I look at it. So therefore I hold myself accountable for not feeding him that and feeding them those things.
Let me say this. I think it's more important and first of all, wholeheartedly respect your opinion on that. Agree with it to a certain extent, because I am one of those who do have a problem with the Nick Cannons of the world, who feel like I should be able to multiply and have all the kids I want with all the babies I want. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, because you're not. You cannot be readily available to all those different situations.
That's true, but
that's a whole other
that's
different
true.
conversation.
But you can be there with nothing, and they be struggling too.
Right, exactly.
That's where I was going to go. It don't matter really that you weren't there. There are plenty of people who have it all. They give their kids everything they ask for, but they still don't teach them those little things that help get them through life.
And one thing about, I've said this to a couple of people in the last year, that have had struggles in their marriage, but they're trying to work through it for one reason or another, and the kids are right there in the middle. And a lot of parents are very concerned. I don't want my children to see us fight. I don't want my boys to see me arguing with their mom. And the one thing I've said several times is dysfunction can be quiet. We like to think of dysfunction as loud and obvious. Your babies can sense.
Oh, yeah.
When you're out of sync,
Yeah.
when you're unhappy, when y'all are miserable. And to me, the better option is, obviously, if you can make it work with the other parent and y'all can have a good relationship together as one, that is optimal, right?
Right.
But don't stay together for the kids.
Oh, no doubt. But understand also when the child gets older, children don't understand those dynamics when it's going on. They just know one day you was here and one day you wasn't.
Well,
So,
that's wrong. That's wrong, because I think I stand on this. Kids recognize when there is disharmony and misery.
I understand that too. But as I am dealing with it now, is what I'm saying is they understand that when it's going on in the household, but they might not understand, well, dad might have to go this way to create better opportunity, get better job, and so that he can be.
Well,
sometimes all they see is
you just left.
You left.
Well, so that would go to my other point I was going to make about
even when you're involved, they just see you
finding
left.
ways to stay involved. And let me say this: we have to dispel the myth that it should be the mom to be the primary caregiver. And if she's not, for whatever reason, she is a bad mother. There are many, many, many dads that I love to pieces in my family and in my friendship circle who are taking care of their kids, not because the moms on the other side are bad moms or in bad situations,
Right.
but especially if they got boys, it's like, I need to be the one to be there. And so I think, and this is, I'm going to talk more to people that look like us. I think if we start to dispel the myth that the mom has to be the primary caregiver if her and that dad don't work it out. If we dispel that myth and give fathers that space and grace and even that responsibility to take on that child, I think we could then begin to produce a better product, for lack of a
And
better
some of the
word.
biggest people that could be advocates of that is the moms.
Right. Hey, look,
Absolutely.
this
Because the
conversation,
moms, because the moms,
I
this conversation
agree.
about
can
to
be,
turn.
No,
you
it
know,
ain't, because I'm with y'all
no,
on that.
because there are situations where, and no, I have never said anything disrespectful about my kid's mother around or to my kids, whatever. I don't care how I felt about it. I never have, never will. But what I will say, since we're on this show, is that decisions on a lifestyle can be made that may not be financially smart, that puts the family, meaning my sons and her, in situations that you have nothing to do with. But when something ain't paid or something's cut off or whatever, it's not looked at. It's looked at like we were struggling
Because
and you wasn't there.
right. And let me say
I'm
this.
talking about from the child's eyes.
Let me say.
I'm saying this because this has happened and the kids went to school and was upset, but I don't know none of this going on. I don't know nothing about this. But years later it comes up, oh dad, we had this situation, and I'm like, where? And then but they gonna feel some kind of way. And what you got to do as dad, you just got to address it and find some understanding.
Daddy, go snatch
and
your
do
kids.
That. That's
Mama,
what it is.
let him snatch them kids.
Let me say this. I'm gonna get in trouble when I say this. Y'all get ready to probably eat me alive. But girl code or woman or the what's it called? Anyway, growing up, my dad was the greatest guy in the world. My dad took care of our family. If my aunts needed something, my dad tried to make sure that he was there for them. If my cousins needed something, he tried to make sure he was there for them. But in my head, because I heard how bad the women in the family talked about my dad when he didn't do what they wanted him to do, that's one of the biggest reasons we had such a clash when I was growing up. Women inform children on how to treat men in their lives,
We do.
regardless of how you feel about the situation. If you are always acknowledging the pitfalls but never lifting that man
Yeah.
up when he's doing everything that he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I was 35 years old when I was driving in the car one day and I was like, "But my dad was a good guy. Like all these years,
Yeah.
I acted like dad was just like the run the mill type of man, but he was taking care, he was holding everybody down. And guess what? He was making minimum wage.
Yeah.
He had his little
Yeah.
little or his enterprise on the side and he was helping everybody. But the bottom line is the sisterhood, a lot of it comes down to being a part of the sisterhood. And this again goes back to those being an advocate for your kid. Are you really advocating for your child, or are you submitting your grievances because in this moment you feel like you're being taken advantage of?
Or are you running in a circle of miserable Marys? And so you buying into the narrative because they having man problems and baby daddy problems. So you going to say that too. And you're trashing your kid's father.
right?
We got to acknowledge that. And I say all the time, ladies, we don't have to sign up to be somebody's baby mama. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way.
Yeah.
You know, I told my ex-husband all the time, I ain't signed up to be your baby mama. I didn't. So let's be clear. Me and you don't work out. It ain't automatic. He comes with me. That's my one and only. Love him to pieces. But we got equal responsibility
Right.
here. And
Exactly.
I'm okay with that. And ladies, we have to be okay with that. We also, ladies, we have, and I'm preaching to my sisters, but we have to recognize just because my aunties and my mamas used to say this shit right here all the time. A baby won't keep a man, it'll run a man if he don't want you.
Most definitely.
Getting pregnant does not make him yours automatically. Let's be clear.
That's true.
So if you and him aren't working out, him being a father is not contingent.
But oftentimes is if you don't
But it
want me,
shouldn't.
you don't want
your
us.
child. But it shouldn't be. And we're actually making things harder for ourselves. Now let me be clear. I am not saying go above and beyond to help him do his fatherly duties. No. But I am saying don't stand in the damn way.
And a lot of them do.
Listen,
Exactly. You mad because he got a new woman.
Right.
Hell. Let me tell you what my baby like for breakfast in the morning. As long as you ain't disrespecting me and him, we good. We
Right.
are good. If you and that man didn't work out, do not hurt your child
Right.
behind it. And I think one of the challenges, and I have said this for a long time, one of the challenges we as black women we have, because we push this mess off on our black boys. We haven't, every man in our life at some point has disappointed us. A daddy, a granddaddy, a uncle, a brother, a cousin has disappointed or hurt us in some way. So when we have our own little kids, we're determined, especially if it's a little black boy, that's going to be ours. And we ain't going to let nobody take him from us, even if I have to shut him off from everybody else. So I'm going to talk trash about his daddy.
That's a good point.
Hurt people hurt.
Yes.
You just made me realize
absolutely.
something.
Hurt people hurt.
That's it.
But ladies, you don't have to. You do not have to be the primary caregiver. It does not
Right.
make you less than a woman. It doesn't. It does not make you less than a mother. And your relationship with that man should not be a contingency plan with the kid.
Right.
Because those are two separate relationships. And sometimes the father is the better parent in the situation.
My bad. I had a camera on Voodoo.
You ain't got no FaceTime, so
it's okay.
I was just
My bad.
throwing my voice over there.
Right. I was doing voiceovers for this.
So let me get back to Brittany right quick because I don't want to put any words in nobody's mouth. So early on in the show, Victor, Brittany says 9 out of 10. The child isn't the problem, it's the adults around them. We are the ones who shape them. So when I said that, she said that it's the parents' fault. 9 out of 10, right? That's how I read it. But she came back and explained it. And she said, where is it?
I think she said she was referring to what Voodoo said.
When he was
But I mean, that was before Voodoo said what he said, that she made that comment. That's why I thought she was saying 9 times out of 10, it's the parents' fault. But she said she was. I was referring to. Let me find it up here. So I'm doing everything tonight. Okay, so she says I was referring to what Voodoo said. He was punching holes in the wall because that's what he saw the adults do. So the adults were the problem and not the child who was mimicking bad behavior. Yeah, I get that part. But I was
We
just
agree with that.
Yeah, we agree with that. I was just talking about the 9 out of 10 that she was saying 9 times out of 10 is.
I think, and
parents.
again,
So
trying to explain for her, but I think she was saying like it's the adults that have the influence. So like if you got a teacher who's not such a good influence, whether it's a coach, whether it's somebody at church, whether it's whatever, 9 times out of 10 it's the adults who are teaching the children the behaviors they should mimic.
All these other things, teachers, coaches, they are flavorings. They are supposed to be adding on to whatever the main course is or whatever.
I agree.
That is what, I think we all have a basic understanding, and people in the chat too. We know that
But if you put too
adults
much
are
sugar-
responsible.
But if you put too much sugar in the tea, though,
Right.
You're
But
diabetic.
again, there's nothing nobody, no influencer, nobody could tell me that would override what Mary Alice Bethea told me, as far as the core of this is what it is, that this was right, this was wrong. Like, there are things I might have maybe leaned to or whatever, or like, but it wasn't. There's nothing strong enough to remove that voice in my head that's been planted.
That's a good point.
Now, whether I choose to override what she said and pay, whatever consequences, I'm still not without the voice.
That's a good point.
Again, my mother passed in '06. There's not a day that I navigate through this world that something that she planted in me does not have some kind of relevance.
Right.
So, yeah, so all these other people, their influences, I played sports, ran track and played basketball and all that. They added to me, but they just added on to what was already there.
Right.
Right.
It's that subconscious thing. I used to say that all the time. My mom's voice is what I hear all the time. Although I don't think about trying to do things to make her look good or what have you, I still, whenever I'm doing things, all right, now you know what's going to happen if you do that.
But for us, it's our mom. For some people, it's the uncle.
Right.
So
dad.
for some people, it is the teacher.
Right.
Whoever that is that gives you that, you know what I'm saying?
Y'all remember when your parent, when you would go off on the rare occasions your parents let you go? I remember when we would go to summer camp for church, and your parents would say, "Don't let your name beat you home." I remember that.
My mom,
Yeah. Like,
No,
don't
well,
let somebody call me before you get home and tell me what you did.
Exactly. Don't
I
let
never
your
went
name
to
beat you
camp
home.
certain days.
Listen.
my mom would say, come out the same way you went in.
There you go. Listen.
But this is, okay, we're proving the point again. A lot of these things are not being said.
That's true.
Are you paying? If you pay attention to the parents, and it's always every generation is taking a step back from the previous. Like, let's not be hypocrites. Every generation gets more diluted in some kind of way, shape, or form. So these stories that we're telling, it's not even we're in what Generation Z is the
Alpha.
it's A now. So. Because we quick to throw the millennial thing, but these millennials are working
They
kids
grown.
with families.
They like 40.
Right. They're working
40.
kids with families. So then you got, it's millennial, then what, Z, then A.
Yeah.
So that's how far the thought pattern is from what we're talking about. So we can't expect that
Right.
from, what's going on now. So unless we're just addressing us, old people.
The kids got sexy red and doo-doo flavored lipstick and all kind of
Okay.
stuff going on right
Now that's
We had our stuff too, though. I'm not.
We
I ain't
did.
gonna throw these kids under the bus because we had our stuff.
yeah,
too.
but
And
you
we
know, we
did.
didn't take it. We didn't listen to the words like that. Evidently,
Well, here's the other part. I don't ever pretend like I didn't do stuff or wasn't exposed to certain things. And I do think this is a part that we can figure out how to bring back. We had some level of a filter that kids
Right.
do
There's
not.
no filter. Yeah, right
Like,
now there's
I
no
would
filter.
have never even got bold enough to bring, what is that colored period red or whatever
Right.
lipstick. Like, I would have been ashamed to say it.
But that filter, again, that filter addresses the filter between the student and the teacher too, because you had people that was gang banging back in the day,
Welcome
but
to
would
campus.
leave it out of
That's
out
what
of
I'm
the
saying.
classroom.
As a society, we have
They would listen to the teacher, even if they didn't respect or whatever, but they wouldn't cross the line. They were like, "Yo, we're gonna deal with this later."
But even
But
in the
now
streets,
there's no filter.
Even in the streets, you had those. Like if they were in the gang, they'd be like, "Bro, this ain't what you do."
right. You had
You
some
need
rules
you need
to
go-
being in the
you know
game.
what I'm saying?
Like,
Like this ain't what you do.
we'll
You play
do this on
football,
a Sunday. Yeah.
Go home, man. We got this. You know what I'm saying? Or
Lois Parker says these kids weren't raised by wolves. I'm trying to. What is she?
our parents was wolves.
Well, no, I guess she's saying.
Ah.
I guess
might
she's
be
saying they
a
don't. They
typo.
regardless of how they act, they. It's not like they are being
Animals.
raised by people who are animals.
Right.
I do
okay.
think it is
Our
starting to
generation.
come back full circle though. I do see it in younger parents. Not the way we would want it to, but I do see it in younger parents who are recognizing that there is a balance between gentle parenting and tough love, and they're trying to figure that out, right? That because they may have experienced some traumas and dysfunction that they don't want to impact their kids, but also recognizing maybe they were too entitled or given too much leeway. So I don't want to beat up on younger parents as much, because I do see where they're trying to find the balance, but it does come back to us as a society. We do have to find that balance where, we ain't cutting down a tree and knocking the hell out you, but at the same time, we ain't letting you sit up and be grown and smoke cigarettes at the age of 10, you
I
know?
wholeheartedly agree with Lois Parker with that statement she just made, because you do hear that a lot. She says one generation always dogged the younger generation, but they're the ones that raised
Exactly.
them.
I actually think
And
you're
that's
so concerned about that.
1,000% true, Miss Parker. Yes,
I agree.
I agree with that.
So, at the end of the day,
What we gonna do about these guns?
no,
Nothing.
that's a whole other topic. But
I will
to-
say this
before we
real
leave-
quick about guns, and we can have a bigger conversation. I do think in our community, I do think we need to talk about gun education.
was just gonna say that.
I do think we have gone so far to, oh my God, I don't want to be around guns.
Right.
I'm scared of them. To when our kids get exposed to them, they think it's some novel thing and really don't understand how to respect that.
Instead of the little girl that's going through the shooting course on the other side.
Right, exactly. I do think in our community, and I'm talking about people that look like us, if we adopted more education around guns and gun safety, I think that would be the first step in helping to stave off some of the violence we're seeing. And I'm not saying if you are anti-gun, go out and buy one tomorrow. I am saying that if you are afraid of guns and you're not talking to your children about them, and when you do, it's all the negative, and you're not showing them how to properly use them or taking them to a gun range or any of that, we're kind of planting those seeds in that bed of, oh my God, when I find out about one, when I get access to one, I want to see what it'll do.
Right.
You know what's more important though? Gun laws. If our
a whole
kids
other subject.
knew the consequences of handling a firearm, even under the influence of alcohol or drugs, even if it's medication, there are gun laws that address those types of things. You
Yeah.
can't just
are, but
fire.
Our gun laws are so screwed up, though. I mean,
granted-
in South Carolina, an 18-year-old can buy an AR, but can't buy a handgun.
watch
Let
till
me
they're
ask y'all a
21.
question. When the last time somebody quiz these young people about a gun law going into a club?
But this is the point I'm making. If they understood, because I talked to a young man who had shot a guy one time. He was like, "Man, I felt like I had to defend myself." He was older than me. He was bigger than me, and I said, "But yeah, you do know you're still going to jail, though, right? Because just because he's bigger than you, just because you felt like he was able to beat you, your life wasn't in jeopardy. You can't just pull a gun on somebody just because, oh, I thought he was going to fight me. That's in the state of South Carolina, well, pretty much United States. If you fire at somebody, even if you show your gun to somebody, and it's not a life-threatening situation, you get in time for that.
This is definitely going to have to be another discussion.
Yes.
Because I don't think none of that is entering the minds of most of the
Exactly.
Only people that want to legally carry guns. We're not. A lot of these things are not being committed by
But I
people
think a lot
who are
of
legally
it
carrying.
is exposure.
But if you put it in right, it's exposure. If you put it in the music, if you put
Let
it
me
in
ask
the
you a
music,
question. Do you know the speed limit?
yeah,
Did that stop people from speeding?
no, but it makes
But
people think.
it makes
when they
you
see,
think. It
if
is
you
a
see
deterrent.
a cop, if you see a cop,
Exactly.
you definitely ain't gonna speed passing that cop.
And it also, because you are exposed more to the speed limit, right, than you are a gun, right? You do take more precautions. Even if you're a speeder, you're gonna take more precautions when
That's
it's
true.
raining,
But
right?
when we're addressing
because you respect
this
that
certain
vehicle.
level of violence that we're talking about people who are committing these acts
They are, but I
that
think
are
a
not.
huge
They're
part
not
of-
going to the cops and saying, "I killed somebody. Here's my gun. I knew the laws. Well, I didn't really know the
Well,
laws,
but they're
I'm
arguing-
legally carrying."
But they're arguing it wasn't my fault. If he wouldn't have done such and such, then I wouldn't have had to do such and such.
Mm-hmm.
And the law is whooping them every time because it's saying it don't matter that you felt that you had to do such and
because
such.
they're
Your
being
life wasn't
educated
in
from
jeopardy.
TikTok and thinking this is the law, or how we've all were educated blanketly and generally about the Constitution.
I think we're making it a little more light because you talking about I mean, we know cats get just little incidents in a spot. We talking about people that's banging.
That's true.
That's we
Again,
talking about
I
people
think
stepping on somebody's shoe
I
Now
think
watch
there's
and
this.
not
two
wanting to be
parts of it.
embarrassed.
But now watch this.
We talking about society ills
On the other
when we
end
talking
of
about that.
On the other end of that, when we're talking about gun safety and the legality of owning a firearm, if EG understands her right as a gun owner, and she's in public and she sees one of these little knuckleheads pull a gun out,
Right.
then she has the right to actually pull and protect the person. Once you understand that it ain't just about you, that it goes both ways, I'm gonna be more careful about who I show this weapon to, or even pulling this weapon out. Because the moment I show it like I'm getting ready to harm somebody, then somebody has the right.
I will
to take me down.
challenge you to this, my brother. Go find you some 18 to 25-year-olds. We'll end on this point. That have their CWP, and I want you to find knuckleheads. I don't want you to find
Right. I know some. I know
Yeah.
some. I used to
who
do
have their
executive protection, so I get it.
CWPs. Okay, you know that they are more. They may be knuckleheads.
They're gonna be the last ones to pull out because they already know what's up.
and they are proud.
And
to
those
have
aren't the
that-
ones that's
that
in the
CWP.
nightclub
Right.
letting loose. That's my point. Those people, those
I think
the-
if we had more gun education
Exposure.
and gun exposure, I think it could do something.
you're right.
to
But
say.
right now we live in an era where we have more access to the information than ever before.
But
So
it's
watch
not
this.
being given out in the right way, though.
They don't. All right, we're gonna.
See, this is the
All
stuff
right, this
y'all
my
should have been talking about
the last
earlier.
point I'll make.
We got
Veronica,
off track.
Veronica asked the question: what are we going to do? At some point, we got to take the initiative, and we got to do the things that we know need to be done within our community. That's
Right.
the bottom line.
Amen. Preach, brother.
Voodoo.
And
All I'm saying is, I was at the Havana Club with a 9mm pointed
his closing
If-
remark.
pointed my chest, and the last thing I thought, hey, wait a minute, dude. You know, if you do this, your mic go,
Ass. You know what?
your mic go down
Don't
with this
take
gun
nothing
law.
serious.
Hold tight. Y'all might want to think about that, brother. Don't kill me here. Wait till I walk and shoot me below the waist.
Oh gosh, you know.
So that's a different charge. But I understand what you're saying.
Right.
yeah,
I
we
get it.
definitely need. We need to have
What
a show.
that's going to do is maybe make more people get get people that are interested that don't know
People who
go
are
get
scared.
their proper. You know what I'm saying? But that's not going to when we tap onto this next time, and I'm gonna shut the hell up to the ignorance we talking about with this other shit.
Hey, listen.
That's what I'm saying.
If they know, who
That's not a
they
closing
are,
remark. You need something positive, Veronica.
Oh, leave it to me. Go ahead, Tyrone. You.
No, I was just going. Look, if they know who to pull it out around, that changed the whole story.
Niggas.
Sir, you have no more time
ahead,
on the
Veronica.
clock.
Go ahead, Veronica.
That's what
Mute the mic.
That's
Mute
what-
the
Okay,
mic.
well,
Mute the mic.
my closing remark, when it comes to responsibility and accountability, it's not on the parents. Well, it's on the parents as the children are young, but once they hit that 13, 14, 15 age, when they start trying to be independent, then hopefully you've instilled enough into them where they can make the proper decisions, but you can't take the blame for their shortcomings where they choose not to listen.
E.g.
Whether you are a boomer, an X, millennial, Y, Z, or them little alphas out there, them the hellions, y'all. We not gonna survive Generation Alpha. Understand that your parent will always carry the burden of who you are as their child. And you as a child have the responsibility to lighten that burden. And on the converse to all parents, we can't solve everything. We're not designed to be perfect. And don't beat yourself up when things don't always go right with your child. It's a two-way street.
Yes. Voodoo.
His mic is muted. His mic is watch, he gonna come with that.
Am I back? Oh no. No, I think y'all have said enough for that. Just parents, don't beat yourself up. If you're honestly doing the best you can, just keep fighting and work with the teachers in the system and not against them, and just do the best you can, man. We all learning. That's not nothing else to say.
I agree with all of you. Great closing remarks. And EG said it best. Parents, the ones that's been there from day one and did the absolute best that you know of, um, and your child goes astray, don't beat yourself up because you did what you you did everything that you felt was possible that you needed to do. So, um, but stay strong. All parents out there, this parent thing, I'll be listening at these kids talking about they ready to have children and all this. Yeah,
Right.
okay. It's a big responsibility.
Very big responsibility.
So just hold your horses, as they say, and just wait until you are 100% ready to bring a life into this world because it is no joke. So I know we was all over the place tonight. Well,
It
not
was a good
all over the place.
conversation.
It was a
though.
good
Yeah, it was
conversation.
a good conversation.
But yeah, and I felt like where I wanted to go was a little too deep. So I'm glad you like drew me back from that because it was going to be a deep, deep show tonight. That's what I was expecting, but the way it turned out, it was a great conversation.
Go
and-
deep sea diving.
yeah, we definitely got to have a conversation about these gun laws and all that.
Child, we
stuff.
gotta walk these streets
Yeah,
tomorrow.
listen. Hey, last thing when you said about the responsibility of parenting, I tell my daughters, and this probably ain't gonna be too popular. Practice making the house. Don't practice having sex. If you don't want no babies,
Ooh.
practice making a house instead of practicing making babies. That's,
You just got canceled.
yeah, I know it.
Somebody gonna say, "Oh, why she got to make the house?"
Right.
See?
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me tonight. Voodoo Child, the hottest DJ around. Thank you so much for sitting in and hanging out with me tonight.
No problemo.
EG, the coach, thank you so much for coming back to the show and
Thank you for
sitting
having
in.
me as always.
Yes, of course. And Tyrone making his first appearance tonight.
Yes.
Finally from behind the camera.
He
Exactly.
hung in there.
Right.
Yes,
Hey,
sir,
listen,
you
I
got to
can-
have him back.
I can stir now.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Tyrone.
Yeah,
He
get
can
in
talk.
there.
You notice him in them comments.
Right.
But he made an appearance tonight. Thank you all so much. This has been a great panel. Thank y'all so much. Shout out to Victor and Fatine, who
Big to take your ass to work, Fatine. We miss you.
who will probably most likely be back next week. So we definitely have them back on the panel next week. And shout out to Tim. I meant to say this earlier. Tim Johnson. I'm not sure if he's still in the comments, but he has something for the Tangy Tea crew. He wanted to give it to me today, but I let him know that Victor and Fatine wasn't going to be here tonight, and I want to see it at the same time those guys see it. So next Tuesday, we're going to reveal to see what Tim has for the Tangy Tea panel. So we will see. But thank y'all so much, all of you out there. Sorry we didn't get to all of your comments, but we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in to Tangy Tea of Life each and every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. We appreciate you guys. If you would like to be a guest, if you have a topic suggestion, if did I say if you want to be a guest? I say it again. If you would like to be a guest, hit me up, tangyteaoflife@gmail.com. And once again, thanks to this lovely panel tonight. We appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great night, guys. Until next time, have a great weekend. Love on each other. And we will see you next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Good night. Oh, I forgot I got to work
night.
this too. I forgot Victor. Night.